Society lied to you. We are taught that endless hard work is the highest virtue, but a blind ox pulling a heavy cart only reaches the slaughterhouse tired. The worker gave his blood to enrich the soil, never realizing his own garden was turning to ash. The hammer fell. Iron met granite with a sharp, ringing crack that echoed across the deep quarry. Elias did not flinch. He was an old man, his skin the color and texture of the very rock he spent his life fracturing. Gray dust coated his beard. Sweat carved deep rivers through the dirt on his forearms. He struck again. Another crack. The rhythm was absolute. The stone gave way, splitting perfectly along the fault line. Around him, the mountain was a scar of endless labor. Hundreds of men moved like ants under the pale, merciless sun, carrying massive blocks of limestone down to the valley where the sovereign's new palace was rising. The air tasted of chalk and dry heat. It was a place where men traded their muscle for copper, day after day, until their backs bowed and their knees shattered. Elias set his hammer down. He wiped his brow with a coarse rag, looking down at the valley below. The palace was magnificent, its spires catching the late afternoon light. Down there the lords drank imported wine and spoke of the glorious future. Up here, men only spoke of the ache in their bones. Elias turned away from the edge. He picked up his chisel. Heavy footsteps crunched against the loose gravel. A younger man, Cale, stumbled up the steep incline of the quarry. His face was gaunt, his shoulders slumped beneath a sweat-stained tunic. He collapsed onto a jagged boulder, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He looked at Elias, his eyes red with exhaustion and quiet desperation.
I have not slept in 3 days. I worked the dawn shift at the forge, and the night shift at the docks. I have given them every ounce of my strength. I do everything they ask. I complain of nothing. And yet, my roof leaks. My wife weeps in the dark. My children have forgotten the sound of my voice. I am giving my life away, Elias. Why am I still empty? I work harder than anyone. Is that not the path of a good man?
Elias did not look at him immediately. He picked up a rough stone, turning it slowly in his calloused hands. He studied its sharp edges, tracing the deep veins of quartz.
You confuse bleeding with building,
Elias finally said, his voice low and coarse like grinding stones.
You think the axe cares how hard the wood works to stay standing? The tree falls all the same.
Cale stared at him, anger warring with his exhaustion. Elias tossed the stone aside. He picked up his heavy iron hammer.
You are blind,
the old man said, turning his back on the sprawling palace below.
You do not lack effort, you lack aim. Follow me. I will show you what becomes of a man who throws his strength into the wind.
They walked in silence for an hour, descending the far side of the mountain until they reached the edge of a roaring river. Beside the black water stood the ruins of an ancient mill. The massive wooden water wheel, thick with dark rot and green moss, was spinning violently. The rushing current slammed against its heavy paddles, forcing it into a frantic, endless rotation. The wood groaned and splintered under the immense, unyielding pressure. Elias pointed a hardened finger at the spinning wheel.
Watch the wood,
he commanded. Cale watched. The wheel spun so fast it shook the stone foundations of the ruined building. Water sprayed high into the air. It was a terrifying display of relentless motion. But inside the dark mill, the heavy grinding stones sat perfectly still. The iron gears that once connected the wheel to the stones had rusted and snapped long ago. The wheel was taking the full, brutal force of the river, tearing itself apart, but it was producing absolutely nothing.
This is you,
Elias said, the raw truth cutting through the deafening roar of the water.
You take the brutal current of the world directly against your back. You spin, you exhaust yourself, you groan under the weight of the labor. You believe that because you are moving, you are useful.
Elias stepped closer to the bank, the violent spray wetting his dusty face.
But your gears are broken. You are disconnected from your own purpose. You are grinding no wheat for your own table. Motion without direction is not virtue, it is slow suicide. The wheel works tirelessly, only to rot faster.
They left the river and continued along a dirt path until the trees parted, revealing the high iron gates of an abandoned noble estate. Inside the courtyard, a lone man, an old servant with a severely hunched back, was meticulously sweeping the cobblestones. The autumn wind howled, violently shaking the dying oaks around him. With every sweep of his broom, a fresh cascade of dead, brown leaves fell directly onto the stones he had just cleared. The old man did not stop. He did not look up at the swaying trees. He simply walked back to the beginning of the courtyard and began sweeping the new leaves, his face an empty mask of pure exhaustion. Sweat dripped from his chin. His hands bled through the rags wrapped around his palms.
Why does he not stop? The wind is too strong. The trees will not be bare until winter. His work is entirely useless.
Elias rested his heavy hands on the cold iron gate.
Because 30 years ago, the master of this house told him to keep the courtyard clean. The master has been dead for a decade. The house is empty.
Elias turned his piercing gaze to Kael.
This is the poison of mindless loyalty. He believes his suffering is honorable simply because he is following orders. He has traded his intellect, his dignity, and his finite time on this earth for the illusion of duty.
Elias gestured to the agonizing scene inside the gates.
A man who cannot question his own labor is not a worker. He is a tool, and tools are kept in the dirt until they rust. He will die with a broom in his hand, having spent a lifetime fighting the wind, proud of a clean stone that no one will ever walk upon.
They left the weeping servant behind, walking deeper into the overgrown ruins of the estate's rear gardens. The air here was heavy with the smell of rotting apples and damp earth. Kael followed Elias through a tangle of dead briars until they reached the center of the courtyard. Before them sat a massive stone well. Its iron crank was rusted solid. The wooden bucket lay shattered in the weeds. Elias picked up a jagged piece of loose masonry. He held it over the black mouth of the well and dropped it. They stood in the chilling autumn wind, listening. 1 second, 2, 3. A dull, dry clatter echoed up from the dark. No splash, no deep resonance of water, just stones striking dry dirt.
This well was the heart of the estate.
Elias said, resting his hand on the cold stone rim.
It watered the master's thoroughbreds. It filled the baths of the noblemen. It kept the lavish gardens green through the harshest droughts. The well gave endlessly. It poured out its depths for anyone who lowered a bucket. But it never paused to let the deep spring beneath it replenish. It gave until its very veins collapsed.
Elias looked at Kael, his eyes dark and unyielding.
And when the water stopped flowing, did the masters stay to repair it? Did they thank the stone for its sacrifice? No, they packed their wagons and abandoned the estate. The well died serving. Its reward is to crumble in the dark, entirely forgotten. You are draining your deep spring, Kael. And when you are dry, the masters of the quarry and the forge will simply dig another hole.
Kael stared into the empty abyss of the well. His ragged breathing slowed. The anger in his chest was fading, replaced by a cold, terrifying clarity.
Come,
Elias commanded softly. They left the dead estate and climbed a steep, jagged bluff that overlooked the vast valley. The wind here was violent, biting through Kael's thin tunic. At the very edge of the precipice, jutting horizontally out of the solid granite cliff, grew a solitary, twisted mountain juniper. It was not a tall tree, it was not beautiful. Its bark was scarred gray, battered by decades of relentless storms. but its roots were thick as iron cables, woven deeply into the microscopic fractures of the stone.
Look at the juniper.
Elias said, his voice carrying effortlessly over the howling wind.
It does not grow fast to impress the forest. It does not drop soft leaves to comfort the soil below. It spends its first 20 years doing absolutely nothing but driving its roots deep into the impenetrable rock. It secures itself first. When the winter gales come and tear the tall, proud pines from the soft dirt, the juniper remains.
Elias placed his rough hand against the scarred bark.
It survives because it refuses to give its energy to the wind. It yields to nothing. It keeps its core strength for its own foundation. It produces only a few bitter berries, but it belongs entirely to itself.
Cale fell to his knees on the hard stone. He looked at his blistered, bleeding hands. The hands that had built walls for men who did not know his name. The hands that had been too tired to hold his own children. Elias stepped forward, his towering silhouette blocking the harsh afternoon sun.
Do not mistake exhaustion for honor,
Elias said, his voice dropping to a low, heavy rumble.
The world will gladly applaud your sacrifice while it drains your lifeblood. True virtue is not blindly breaking your back for another man's harvest. It is not giving until you are hollow, but building until you are solid. It is not being the fastest wheel in the violent river, but the stone that breaks the current. Do not be the blind ox, proud of its heavy yoke. Be the wolf that knows when to hunt for its own pack and when to rest in the shadows.
Elias reached down, gripping Cale's shoulder with a strength that felt like the mountain itself.
If you do not plant a single seed for yourself, your loyalty is not a virtue. It is a slow, silent surrender. A man who gives everything to the world leaves nothing for his own soul. Go home, Cale. Stop bleeding for the stone. Plant your own garden.
You are watching this, and your shoulders carry the heavy ache of 1,000 useless burdens. You have traded your finite time, your fading health, and your quiet peace for the approval of masters who will replace you before your body is cold. Look closely at your own hands. Whose empire are they building? You wear your exhaustion like a badge of honor, but a badge cannot feed your soul. It cannot shelter your family when the inevitable storms arrive. We are conditioned to believe that saying no is a weakness. We are taught that setting boundaries is selfish, but the absolute truth is far darker. Stop giving your absolute all to fields you do not own. Stop letting your own garden turn to ash while you water the weeds of ungrateful men. The highest duty you possess in this fleeting life is not endless, grueling labor for others. It is self-preservation. Because a hollow man can lift no real burdens, and a dead tree offers no shade to those it loves. If this truth resonated with you, like this video so it can reach those who need it most. Subscribe for more timeless wisdom. Comment "My roots come first" to seal this lesson.